Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're skipping the basic history lessons and jumping straight into the 12th century, right to the heart of the Hoysala Empire in India. We're looking at the magnificent Chennakeshava Temple in Belur. Now sure, King Vishnuvardhana commissioned it back in 1117 CE, and yeah, it's famous worldwide for these absolutely stunning, intricately carved soapstone figures. But we aren't here just to look at a pretty building today. We're diving into a 900-year-old mystery that's literally been hiding in plain sight. It's a structure that took 103 years to build, yet holds some serious cosmic secrets we're only just starting to decode with modern tech.
Okay, let's get right into the anomaly that kicked this whole investigation off. If you look closely at the temple's stone eaves, you're going to see these really strange, completely uneven gaps. And honestly, it begs a huge question. Why? I mean, how could master artisans, people who literally invented earthquake-proof, mortarless stone joints that have survived centuries of seismic activity, make such a glaring, obvious mistake?
For generations, the standard historical narrative just kind of shrugged these gaps off. Academics literally chalked them up to sloppy apprentice errors. Like, oops, the new guy messed up. But come on, that makes zero sense when you look at the reality of the Hoysala builders. These folks were highly advanced mechanical engineers. They were working with soft soapstone that hardens over time, utilizing this complex grid system and friction-based joinery for intense earthquake resistance. Builders of this caliber, they don't just accidentally leave random holes in their absolute masterpiece.
So, to find out what these gaps are really for, we actually need to step inside the dark inner sanctum and listen to the locals. For centuries, there's been this really spectacular local folklore. People said that during the transition of seasons, the rising sun does something totally impossible. The legend goes that sunlight weaves through an incredibly dense maze of carved stone lattices to perfectly illuminate the exact feet of the central deity, Chennakeshava. For the longest time, historians treated this as just, a charming myth. But actually, this charming myth is the exact key that takes us from history right into hard science.
To see if this folklore actually held any water, researchers turned to archaeoastronomy. If you're not familiar, it's this fascinating field where we study how ancient civilizations understood and used the sky, usually by mapping a physical site's exact orientation against the sun and stars. By using this as an analytical baseline, researchers could finally investigate the temple's layout not just as an artistic endeavor, but as a potential giant astronomical instrument. And right away, the temple's very foundation gave them a massive clue. Hoysala temples feature this really striking 16-pointed star base resting on a raised platform. Well, it turns out this wasn't just some aesthetic choice so they could fit more carvings on the walls. Actually, scratch that, it is beautiful, but it's fundamentally functional. The entire foundation essentially acts as a massive, stone-carved mathematical compass specifically built to capture highly specific solar alignments.
To test this compass, researchers didn't just guess. They used a super precise digital methodology. First, they mapped the exact geometry of that 16-pointed star base. Then, they took the temple's specific celestial coordinates, including its true east deviation, and fed all that data into advanced 3D architectural simulation software. And third, they tracked the exact trajectory of the sun's path during the equinoxes. Remember, those are the specific days when day and night are of perfectly equal length, perfectly matching that transition of seasons mentioned in the local folklore.
Now, the results from these digital simulations? Absolutely staggering. When researchers compared the computer models against real-world photography taken inside the temple during the equinox, the match wasn't just close. It was a flawless 100% match. No way around it. That ancient folklore wasn't a myth at all. It was empirically verifiable science, literally recorded in stone.
When we dive into the simulation data, specifically looking at the heat map that shows the light intensity, the absolute genius of these builders reveals itself. At a precise minute on the morning of the equinox, right as the sun clears the horizon, a single concentrated beam of light pierces through the temple. It perfectly bypasses all the surrounding darkness of the inner sanctum, travels exactly across the floor, and strikes right at the central axis.
So, here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. Those uneven, weird-looking gaps in the stone eaves on the outside of the temple? They were never apprentice errors, not even close. They were highly calculated apertures. The Hoysala architects mathematically carved those specific spaces to act as lenses, deliberately allowing light to enter only on precise astronomical dates to fulfill a grand cosmic design.
This realization completely shatters how we view these ancient builders. The gaps that colonial historians just utterly dismissed as simple oversights, they stand instead as precise instruments of light. I mean, we literally have to elevate these builders in our minds. They weren't just talented sculptors, they were ancient astrophysicists and optical engineers.
But this incredible discovery introduces a whole new and honestly even more staggering problem. Think about it for a second. For a beam of sunlight to travel through multiple stone lattices and hit an exact target on a specific minute of a specific day, the building must be perfectly microscopically level. So, how on earth could a massive heavy stone building maintain the absolute perfect structural equilibrium required for this sunlight trick over centuries? We're talking centuries of shifting Earth, brutal monsoons, and seismic activity.
Well, the answer to that structural nightmare lies with one of the most mysterious objects in the entire temple courtyard, the gravity pillar. For years, people looked at this 42-foot-tall stone pillar almost like a magic trick. Why? Because it stands entirely on its own weight, with absolutely no foundation below ground. None. But if you look at it through the lens of engineering rather than magic, you realize it's actually the master calibration tool for the whole site.
Think of it this way. In modern construction, we use lasers to make sure things are level. But a traditional plumb bob uses gravity to establish a perfectly vertical line, which in turn guarantees a perfectly horizontal level. By placing this massive freestanding 42-foot pillar right in the courtyard, the Hoysala engineers essentially created a giant self-verifying instrument. As long as that gravity pillar remains standing upright without tipping over, it mathematically proves that the ground and the temple floor are flawlessly level. It's this brilliant electricity-free failsafe that absolutely guarantees the equinox sunlight alignment remains dead-on accurate year after year, century after century.
When you take a step back and combine the archaeoastronomy, those perfectly calculated light apertures, and the seismic genius of the gravity pillar, it's just awe-inspiring. Belur truly stands as a timeless testament to a civilization that carves science directly into stone. It's the ultimate proof that these architects were meticulously, brilliantly marrying the cosmic with the earthly. Which leaves us with a truly fascinating question to chew on. If the so-called sloppy errors of Belur actually turned out to be evidence of advanced astrophysics and mind-bending structural engineering, what other ancient mistakes around the world are actually advanced scientific instruments, just hiding in plain sight? What other standard historical narratives are just waiting to be completely rewritten, simply by taking a closer, more scientific look at the evidence left behind? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep questioning the history around you.